Hello and welcome. Today I was just inspired to share, just scratch the surface, on what seems to be the resetting of Ireland, or more specifically Dublin. And I've already made the video. It didn't go as planned, and I'll show that to you in a minute here. But really, who cares what I say? These images say a lot more. And they call this event the Easter Rebellion of 1916. And always a different narrative or reason for the great destruction and fire that most cities succumbed to in the early 1900s. But in this case, a revolt, a skirmish, we are told. And as always, I don't know. I just know what seems suspicious, giving way too much credit to this small population all throughout the realm, their ability to throw up entire cities in a short time period, then the ability for the whole cities to burn and turn to piles of rubble, and then the ability to rebuild everything, just leaving us scratching our heads. Here a little look at remembering Easter Rising. Here we go. These guys, we're told, are capable of rendering a city into something like this, or something like this, or this. And we know better when we see photos of the Civil War in an even earlier time period than this. It looks the same, just piles and mountains of bricks and rubble and concrete, and just mind-blowing to see how advanced even the ruins are. And there doesn't seem to have been any mud flood in Dublin. The streets seem to be made of brick and stone. And here are these people, the new residents or the old ones. Anyway, in this video, I'll present a theory that was presented by another channel. Thanks for being here. I love you all. And let's have a little look. Here is the support crew for tonight's video. A lot of people wonder what my cat's name is. Her name is Studio. Good girl. And of course Chief. And we'll just move them over here. I suppose we could leave them down here. What is it, 318? And who cares? No, but seriously, sleep is very important, not just to rejuvenate, but it is our access to our deeper self, our subconscious, or our higher self. When we enter into sleep, we go to the place in which our creation began, the intelligence that formed every cell in our bodies. This is a great channel, billmillerflip. It's Bill Miller, and the flip is a skateboard trick. And this morning, he posted an excellent video. Really, Bill, it was well done. And I'm not sure why, but it's not here anymore. I was gonna show the video, or kind of do a commentary on it, and ultimately direct you to his channel to watch it. It was just so good. And I'm sure he's pulled it because of some infringement issues. It had a lot of great old film footage, great music, and great thoughts. I'm not sure. I'm sure he'll re-upload it fixed. So I was just looking on his channel, and it looks like he uploaded some of these photos that he showed in the video. Maybe not all of them, and I don't think the film footage is in here, but that's okay. I think I'll just share these photos, his channel, and possibly his theory or hypothesis, if I understood what he was getting at. and it has to do with Dublin, Ireland in 1916. And he begins by showing a beautifully built out city, just gorgeous, and everything that we see everywhere. It seems like the oldest photographs have all their cities intact and pristine, and then they all seem to share a similar fate. Some kind of either natural or not natural disaster strikes the city, turning it into a pile of rubble. We see the same MO in every case, and we in this community question the abilities to even throw these cities up in these early time periods. Just this column here in the background, for example. And there's just so many aspects to question about these narratives. The ability to build everything, then the strangeness with the destruction of the cities. If we're talking about San Francisco, the earthquake and fire. In this case here in Dublin, Ireland, it will be a fire and a small battle. A battle consisting of grenades and some artillery, machine guns, nothing that would lend to the disaster and the aftermath that we see after this skirmish. And there is a lot of speculation in our community. Are these artificial or natural disasters? Or are the resets created cyclically? Which I believe they are, but we also see cases of smaller man-made resets, resetting an area, a population, town, or country. And today we are told this fire was caused as a byproduct of a small battle that lasted a week, I think. And the aftermath is just incredible. I guess it'll be for you to decide. But first, let's look at the city in its glory. Again, like all other cities, just sprouting into existence. No shortcuts taken. And I really wish I could have shown you his last video. I wish you could have just watched it. Here we see the city in ruins. We see brick streets. And you should definitely put your cat outside when you begin recording, as much as I love her. Here we're told there was a small war. And if we're to imagine anything that you would use to cause harm or destruction in this time period, all this doesn't make any sense. Again, resembling San Francisco, or even the states affected by the Civil War. Very similar piles of rubble everywhere. Just heaps of rubble. And in the pictures before this fire, we saw portrayed a very harmonious city and people, perhaps the first wave of inheritors, or maybe survivors of the reset. And now, post-disaster, we see all these people, well-dressed, suspicious seeming, ready to make claim to the city after displacing so many. And what kind of fire could do this damage? Okay, I understand a fire taking out all the wood, maybe busting out the windows, but these piles? Just as if some demolition has just taken place? Really seeming like some aerial invasion. And so here we see a city in ruins, and just the ruins are incredible. What has survived is exquisite. The tech, the roads again, completely made of brick, and then just a pile of building. We see a horseless cart back here by these men, just to give us an idea of what time period we're dealing with. And then as usual, we see wooden poles. So these buildings were completely wiped out, and then we have a wooden pole over here, another one over here. These are metal. And this really reminding me of the ruins in the Bronx. Really exactly the condition of so many cities. And now we just see poverty. Just really strange the way we see the perfection of the city, then the destruction, and then always the rebuilding once again. And here this cart has been smashed by rubble. And is this fresh? Is this really just fresh rubble? Have these buildings recently been abandoned? Because this looks really old. Even the debris. I hope this horse got out of the way. Here is this man's rifle with a big spear on the end. Very primitive. If you ran out of bullets, you would resort to jabbing your opponent. And a closer look at these piles. People just standing on the piles. And here in the background, how advanced this city was, and how it could possibly end up looking like this in a couple of weeks. And yet something has just rocked this city with something that we know nothing about. And look at these massive columns, and these people are just picking through the debris. And I don't think with 1,000 grenades you could do this to this building. And of course these people weren't trying to take out buildings. They were supposed to be fighting each other. Did they all have poor aim? Or was the actual point to take out the buildings? Not only here, but in the earthquake of San Francisco, in the Civil War, in the Great Fire of Chicago that was said to have been started by a candle knocked over by a cow. Was there an active effort to take out these cities and start over again? And that was the most interesting part of Bill's video, is he was showing all of these apparatus that were said to be firefighting devices of the time, perhaps steam engines pumping water. But yet when you really looked at the pictures, it looked like they were actually pumping fire onto the buildings. And he tied this into Greek fire. And really these depictions did look like they were pumping something flammable onto the buildings. And whatever this was may have reached heat's potential of tearing down walls. And a very interesting theory. And that is what it looks like. Like everything has been sprayed with something extremely flammable. And just very selective. Every other building turning to rubble, right next to buildings that are virtually untouched. Very similar to the fires in California, selective and intelligent seeming. And it is my thoughts that it's both. We had a great cyclical reset, and all these buildings remained all throughout the realm. People repopulated in the spirit of the old world, and then a power or malevolent control system moved in and created a parasitic system of control, rewriting the narratives, reclaiming all the land, and establishing all the major industries and institutions throughout the realm. And I think what we're seeing here is a secondary man-induced reset. And what Bill was saying in his video was the military was in charge of firefighting. And it really seemed like they were taking orders and helping to bring down the city. A similar thing in the narrative for San Francisco. that I read about and shared in a video years ago. After the earthquake, we are told that the firefighters, for safety reasons, were demolishing entire blocks, city blocks, with dynamite. And at the time, that really sounded suspicious to me, especially in this early time period. After a catastrophe, to think that you would go in and just start dynamiting more buildings down. And it made me think that that's what was happening all along. But in Bill's video, he made me consider that maybe it wasn't dynamite, but rather something that we know nothing about. It wouldn't be in the narrative, of course. They would naturally leave that out. And if that was some sort of sound cannon or Greek fire or something that we don't even have a name for, we may never know. But in my opinion, it falls into the same set of circumstances that we see with all cities. Around the same time period, early 1900s, the whole world is on fire for some reason or another. And it's just nice and convenient, as it seems to be the beginning. And people would no longer continue building this way, using the architectural techniques of the old world, only able to demolish and cheapen everything moving forward. And these old world wonders are the nicest part of any and every city to this day, and these people had nothing to do with them. Now I'll finish up with some bonus thoughts while we scroll through some photos of Dublin. Here I'm going to propose an idea. I may have spoken of it before, but today I'll try to make it more clear. I often say that these people could not build these wonders, and more importantly, wouldn't build them. The condition that we see them really living in doesn't require architecture like this. And even though these are old-timers, this style is much older than they are. A style perhaps worthy of Greek gods, if we're using our narrative. But today I will give the benefit of the doubt that perhaps a people, not these people, but a people similar to ourselves, may have built all of this in a chapter of our history that has been erased. All my life I've been impressed and perplexed at how people were more advanced the further back you go. Every generation getting a little less intelligent. Even the literary abilities of the author of the Bible, for example, or Shakespeare, or even Thoreau more recently. And what if civilization, since the time of the Greeks, or the Phoenicians, or even Atlantis, had just kept going? What if man had reached the peak? And what if it had only ended in the early 1900s? Somebody or some faction either being a part of humanity or a part of humanity just serving some other force came in and systematically wiped out all the cities and displacing all the inhabitants in the early 1900s, rewriting the books, explaining that there was a great fire for this reason or that reason, taking control of all education from that point on, books, governments, packing castles with people that threatened their plan, and calling these castles asylums. And after a generation or two, people don't care, just want jobs, begin eating their newly introduced diet, new educational systems, replace all the ideas of the old world, and nobody questions anything. For 150 years, their plan is seamless. And by 2020, you can tell the people anything you want. So I thank you for joining me this week. Do have a blessed day. God bless. I love you all, and I'll see you soon.